Alright, I'm back. This is my first video in a long time, and as you can see, I'm in a different house. I went to Alberta. I celebrated my birthday not too long ago. I'm 27, holy crap. I'm 3 years off of 30. What the hell happened? Anyways, let's get to the rock and metal albums I loved in the summer of 2022. And before we begin, I apologize for the lighting. It's not very good in here. Alright, let's get to it. Released on June 3rd, we've got Heroine by Thornhill. This is the second album from this Australian alternative metal band, and I don't get why they were considered metalcore in the first place, especially with albums like this and their 2019 debut, The Dark Pool, which I actually got into last year and I grew to love. This is like if Deftones had more sass and more jazzification, like the kids like to say nowadays. Open as a Hellfire Club had shades of Helmet and Muse in there too, with singer Jacob Charlton crooning his solo. That last leg of the song has been stuck in my head all summer long. This whole album feels like a drive through a rainy cyberpunk city a la Blade Runner. Songs like Leather Wings and especially the 9th track Rock capture that vibe perfectly. I can hear influence from the Danish band Vola at certain points as well in the guitars. They also bring a very funky sort of nu metal groove on Archangel and Blue Velvet that are, yes, once again, derivative of Deftones. I know I'm just saying Deftones here, but you can't deny it. Valentine, however, goes for an instrumental that is reminiscent of some of those J Dilla inspired low beats playlists. If you've ever been on YouTube as much as I have, there's a good damn chance that you know what I'm referring to. This album actually led me, believe it or not, to finally appreciating their main influences, Legendary album from back in the year 2000. So I have to thank Thornhill for finally getting me into Deftones, even if it was indirectly. False Light by Whitewood, released June 17th. This is the third full-length LP by the Ukrainian jazz-influenced black metal band. In comparison to their last record in 2019, there's a lot more black metal influence this time around, and a lot more atmosphere in this record. However, the jazz horns and the instrumentation is still there, and it's really expertly performed. Tracks like Leviathan, Phoenix, and the title track use the over 1 hour long runtime very widely, playing around with atmosphere quite a bit throughout that 1 hour runtime as well. There are also some Danzig and Sisters of Mercy influence on some songs in the clean singing that are really well done and help to really give this album some character. This very well could be in the running for my personal album of the year, along with a similar record that came out on the same day from a country on the other side of this awful conflict that is plaguing Whitewood's homeland. That is the debut album from the Russian avant-garde black metal band Swampborn, entitled Beyond Rachel, released also on June 17th. It's a very unfortunate situation to have two of your personal favorite album of the year contenders from the month of July come from opposite sides of an ongoing current conflict. In the case of Swampborn, I hear a big influence from Between the Buried and Me, like a very big influence from the prog metal legends. Some very muscular grooves and blast beats starting from the get-go with the first track Entropy, which also had some electronic drums at the middle part too. Much like BT Bam, there is an uncompromising spirit behind the album that pulls in bits and pieces from stuff outside of metal, like jazz, electronic, and even what sounds like some influences from classical Russian folk music. Overall, this is an amazing record that is, as I mentioned before, my personal frontrunner for my album of the year. It is so sad that this record had just come out at a time where their home country government is continuing their invasion of a neighboring country. And I'm speculating here, but the rampant and unfair Russophobia that countries like the US and my home country of Canada are pushing towards innocent people in that country that didn't even want the stupid war to happen could very well be why this album isn't getting the attention it so rightfully deserves. Hey, Jock and Left Calvin here. While I'm editing this video, I just wanna say some things about the Russian-Ukraine war situation regarding the whole thing I said about Russian fans. Just in case people think I'm some sort of spy or whatever for the KGB or whatnot. No, I'm not. I freaking hate Mr. Poo-Poo Head and his army of awful delinquents for going on Ukrainian land and trying to claim it as theirs. So what I mean is that I don't like people not giving Russians a chance just because their government is absolute trash doesn't mean you have to judge innocent people just because they're Russian. I hope you guys understand. I hope you don't get too caught up in what I said in the video. Don't judge people based on what their government is doing, because you never know. That Russian guy you probably saw down the street, he might be a nice person. Back to the video. So please give this album a chance. It's well worth your time, people. The next album I'm going to talk about is Equinox Vigil by the Minnesota black metal band Anexorum, released June 17th. Also on June 17th, holy crap, there's like 3 albums released on that same day. Anyways, the third full-length from this Minnesota-based melodic black metal project with connection to the band Orbisky is one that exhibited a strong play that thing over again energy with me once I finished it. It is a very, very, very good album, and maybe one of my favorite black metal albums of the year. This sound is extremely reminiscent of Dissection, and also somewhat of Swedish melodic cult favorite Dawn, with their highly melodic and upbringing melodies. There are harmonic leads all over this thing. However, they don't forget that they are a black metal band, as the record also packs a ton of aggression in a tight 40-minute runtime. Also, this record contains some of the best programmed drums I've ever heard in a black metal album in quite a while. The fills are so realistically placed and so well written that I had me fooled thinking that it was a real drummer. Great job in the drum programming, guys. The clean singing on the track Dark Sky Sanctuary is a nice surprise to break up the standard black metal vocals that are peppered throughout all the rest of the album. If you like that Vehemence album from earlier this year but you didn't really care for the folk interludes, this should satisfy ya. The next album I'm going to talk about is Planet Zero by the American radio rock staple Shinedown, released July 1st. This is album number 7 from one of the most successful bands in the history of 2000s and 2010s radio rock, and it is a concept album about cancel culture. Oh boy. Already, some people's eyes will probably be rolling to the back of their freaking skulls. But you know what? I don't care. I like this album a fair bit, okay? Brett Hind's lyrics on songs like America Burning and the title track are divisive for sure. But seeing as I'm increasingly growing disillusioned with my generation's penchant for trying to cast everything from the past, and I mean everything, by the standards of today, they hit hard with me, especially that title track. Sure, the interludes are corny with the robotic voice, but they do work in delivering the concept of the record quite well, and I will stand by that opinion. My favorites on this record are the ballads, particularly Dysfunctional You and A Symptom of Being Human, both of which tackle mental health in a way that speaks to me very well. If you can vibe with the slightly right-wing political lyrics and theme And if you like that Octane style radio rock, you'll have no problem digging this record. Where Madness Dwells by Iron Flame, released on July 1st as well. First of all, I would like to give a quick shout out to Matt G. Paradise of the Accusation Network for unintentionally introducing this album to me. Thank you, good sir. Iron Flame is the studio project of one Andrew Ducagnan, a vocalist and multi-instrumentalist who has worked with the likes of Nechatron, Orbisky, and other notable bands across the vast scene of underground American heavy metal and extreme metal for about 20 years at this point. On this new album, the fourth one to date, Andrew is joined by a slew of session musicians and friends of his, including his bandmate from Icarus Witch and lead guitarist Quinn Lucas. And this new album is a love letter to classic heavy metal. It's got all of the classic Iron Maiden and Judas Priest style harmonies you want, plus a solid performance from Andrew on the mic. It is just such a solid and enjoyable record, nothing offensive, nothing too weird, just pure old school metal played straight and true. And the only song I don't really care for though is the pre-release single Ready to Strike, with its very awful chorus repeating the song. They're like, whoa, ready to strike. I'm like, what? That all you can think of? It should have gone back to the drawing board. But if you like your melodic metal played straight to the point, you might like this thing. Give it a shot. The next album I'm going to talk about is a big one for me. Hostile Architecture by Ashenspire, released on July 18th. First off, I would love to thank Rob Walton of the Metal Meltdown for taking my word for it, listening to this album, and even shouting me out on his Albums I Missed segment he did for the month of July. He even quoted my thoughts on the record, where I said that Ashenspire is a black metal equivalent to Black Country New Road. And I stand by that analysis more than a month later. Violins, check. A hopeless, despondent atmosphere similar to For the First Time, check. A miserable British guy fretting and singing about the downfalls of modern society as the voice, freaking check. Although, unlike Isaac from Black Country New Road, this guy's Scottish, so he's talking in a Scottish brogue. Mix that in with angular tremolo riffs and black metal blast beats, and you basically got this album. It tackles some very real and unfortunate topics. The burning of Grenfell Tower, the vicious and soul-sucking scourge of capitalism and how it disregards the homeless and ignores the mental limits of the working class. It is a rallying cry for the working class against such throes. I would like to add that the title of the LP comes from the ways that architectural design in a late-stage capitalistic society is unintentionally made to weed out the homeless, like the spikes that are mentioned in the lyrics for the opening track, The Law of a Bethel. Another homeless spike outside the door! There are also some quite well executed twists and turns, like the a cappella turned ballroom jazz interlude, How the Mighty Have Vision, and the many other jazz influences sprinkled throughout the album. I have seen some people write them off as a Forest of Stars clone. I don't think it's as simple as that. You see, Ashenspire, they talk about real issues, whereas a Forest of Stars, they just dress up in costumes and pretend that they're from like the 1800s. I'd say that's enough of a difference to separate them, if you ask me. Overall, this new Ashenspire record is one of my front runners for Album of the Year. I am so darn happy that the Metal Meltdown loved this thing, and I think you'll love it as well, especially if you are a post-punk fan of Black Country New Road, Black Midi, and others wanting to get into black metal. The next album I'm going to talk about is God's Country by Chat Pile, released July 29th. This album is one of the most terrifying things I've heard all year. and it only took one listen for me to put this thing on the list. This is the debut album by this Oklahoman sludge metal and noise rock band. I had heard the 2 EPs from a few years ago, and even that did not prepare me for what I was about to hear. This thing is a hell ride into the darkest parts of the human mind, channeled through tunes that are inspired by Korn, Acid Bath, and others in that grand intersection of these down-tuned, solo-less, dark, sludgy, and screwed up avenues of metal music. The vocals performed by Reagan Bush are the star of this album. He is terrifying, just screeching and ranting like a deranged madman on so many of these songs. He is so convincing that as a listener, I am genuinely worried for this guy's mental state. Like, this is a performance you usually get from these really dark and screwed up depressive black metal bands like Jeff Whitehead from Leviathan or Natron from Silencer, not usually from a sludge metal band. Maybe from I Hate God, the Louisiana legend I Hate God. The album's closure, Grimace Smoking Weed.jpg, is basically Bush describing a schizophrenic episode, along with a dangerously unhealthy dose of morbid ideation for about 9 minutes, and at the end of it I basically started crying. As a guy who has been struggling with thoughts of depression over the past couple of years, I deeply connected with that song. It gave me pretty much a feeling I have never really had with heavy music that often, except for on 2 occasions. One being when I heard Daddy by Korn when I was 14 years old, and I was stunned into silence by John just screaming, "No, no, no, don't touch me, no." And then the closing track on Beartooth's 2014 album, Disgusting, called Sick and Disgusting, where Caleb just fucking breaks down at the end of it, and I'm just stunned and just feel so sorry for the artist doing the song. Anyways, enough of that dark shit. This is a fantastic debut, but it's also one I'll not be coming back to that often because it's just too dark and too terrifying. The next album I'm going to talk about is Reckoning by the heavy metal band Hellfire, released August 12th. This is Hellfire, not Hellfire, just Hellfire, 2 words. This 4th offering from this American heavy and thrash metal band is a tour de force of the best parts of both of those subgenres. I'm instantly reminded of the very best of 1980s Metallica and Iron Maiden, often within the same song. The vocals are done by a guy called Jake Nunn, and he is vicious. They actually remind me of Steve Zetro Souza from Exodus. There are mid-paced tracks like the opener Reckoning and the single Medieval Cowboys, as well as blisteringly fast numbers like the absolutely vicious Addicted to Violence. Addicted to Violence! This might be one of my favorite thrash songs of 2022. This is a great album for fans of the 80s new wave of British heavy metal movement, as well as the classic 80s thrash metal scene. The only thing holding this thing back from getting the album of the year, though, is the mixing. The drums are way too loud and they smother the guitars a little bit, and reminds me of a certain Metallica album. Considered a classic, but then Lars said that no, you shouldn't have any bass, and basically screwed the mixing up. I wonder what album that could be. I wonder. I also want to thank Holdeneye in his review over at the blog Angry Metal Guy for getting me into this band and this album. Thank you, dude. The next album I'm going to talk about is Immortals Requiem by Phantom Spell, released August 19th. This is the debut record of the progressive rock and heavy metal side project of one Mr. Kyle McNeil, the vocalist from the English metal band Seven Sisters. This is a fantastic amalgamation of influences from the 1970s prog scene and the early 1980s metal scene. Lots of Kansas-style vocals and Pink Floyd-esque atmospheres, paired with some Iron Maiden-style harmonized leads and catchy hooks. Not too far from something like a record from Tigers of Pang-Tang that would have been hot back in the day. Kyle's singing is fantastic. Some of the best vocals I've ever heard in a traditional heavy metal project all year. In an odd way, this kind of reminds me of that album from Spirit Adrift that I was so head over heels for back when it released in 2019. Except if Nate Garrett and company went down a more relaxed, slightly softer and proggier direction instead. Overall, this is a catchy and very well-made record that I have to thank the new wave of traditional heavy metal 4-album channel, that's NWOTHM 4-album channel, for putting it on my radar. So if you like old school 70s progressive rock and early 1980s metal, definitely check this thing out. It's well worth a listen. The final album I'm gonna talk about is Black Braid 1 by the indigenous American black metal band Black Braid. This indigenous black metal project debut is one of the best black metal debuts I have heard this year. It more than deserved the hype it got. Main member and mastermind Gaigasoa performs all the instruments on this album except for drums, and he absolutely kills it on the riffing and the songwriting. There are so many beautiful riffs on this thing, especially on the second pre-release single, The River of Time Flows Through Me, where they evoke some of the best of those classic Watain, Immortal, and Dissection records that every melodic black metal fan knows and loves. There is also some very tasteful uses of flute in the interludes that really add to the ritualistic and earthy atmosphere that the record nails so freaking well. It shows up in the songs too, like on the track Sakandaga, where it takes the role usually reserved for the lead guitar. Also, Gaigasoa's death metal growls are top-notch in the closing 10-minute epic prying open the jaws of eternity. Overall, this is an insanely glorious and stunning record that is not to be missed at all. And in my opinion, it is one of the best heavy records I've heard all year. Right up there with Mesa, Negative Plane, Ashen Spire, Inexorum, and the aforementioned White Ward and Swamp Thorn records. Plus, it is the perfect runtime for me, just 36 minutes. I cannot recommend this thing enough. Go listen to it if you haven't already. And that is my favorite records of the summer of 2022. Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications. Before I see you in the next video though, I have to say that the video that mentions Mineral Road, it will be coming. Don't worry. And I also have some other videos I want to do too. Rock on guys, and I'll see you another time.